Welcome to another Creative Spin podcast. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about creativity. But of course.
What else could it be?
Of course. But we're going to dig in. On this one, I want to really dig in. And this all came to be because of an article we read. So this episode is going to be interesting because we're going to debate if creativity is one of the most important skills to have at work. Or not. Some people might feel that it's not. I think it is. I don't know about you. We'll find out very soon. And you know, I think in this episode we're digging into what we do and how we get to be creative in different ways, because I do a lot of design, you do a lot of writing. This is going to be a good episode. Guys, stay tuned. So welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Creative Spin podcast. And in this podcast, basically for somebody that has never listened to it yet, we talk about everything to do with creativity. We try to give it a little bit of a spin. Obviously, the name is Creative Spin. So it can go from life to work and anything kind of in between. We try to keep things interesting and creative. And that leads me to the topic of today. But before that, I need to introduce myself. I'm Jamie. I'm here with Anna.
Hi.
Welcome to another episode.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Are you liking this new
It's
adventure
very
that
creative.
we're having?
Yes,
is it
for
creative?
sure.
Before we even begin our conversation, just want to ask you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe. Everybody says this, but it's kind of like a reminder. It's really a reminder. And speaking of reminders, there's also that little bell button that YouTube has that basically says, you know, whenever we upload a new episode of the Creative Spin podcast or any other videos for that matter from Creative 7, you'll get a notification. And this way you'll remember. It's just a little reminder, right? Just, you know, we have so many. Why not one more? One more. Just click on it. So yeah, I'm looking at my little notes here. We also decided that today's episode is going to have a sponsor.
Yes, it does.
And the sponsor of Creative Spin podcast is Creative 7.
Cool.
Right?
Well, see, a creative studio sponsoring a creative podcast. I like that.
This is like the square root of creative.
Gosh.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And the sponsorship is really because, you know, Creative 7 is really the engine behind Creative Spin podcast. Creative 7 is the studio in which we create and edit and do all the fun things behind the scenes in terms of podcasting, in terms of video stuff, in terms of design, in terms of all of that stuff. And Creative 7 is really the one that's giving us a hand in getting these episodes out. So that's that. Now let's just jump into the topic. So actually, was it you that found? Yeah, it was you that found this article, and I said, you know what, that's a great topic for us to talk about, because I thought that it was really, really interesting, because in not only companies like ours that deal with creativity on a day-to-day basis, I think creativity is one of those things that a lot of times it's basically associated with art, right? You're a creative person, and that in a way is very
it's
true.
Accurate. Yeah,
it's very accurate.
Sure.
But I also see creativity in a different way. Like, how do you get creative selling something that isn't creative? You know what I mean? Like, if you're just selling shoes, you need to be creative. You need to find a creative way to, when you're speaking to your clients, the people that walk into your store,
convince me to buy the pair of shoes.
It's convincing. It's again being creative about how you're going to sell that. And in the article, I'm just going to pull it up quickly here. They go through a whole bunch of things. We're not going to read the article.
But it focuses on the challenges, right?
It focuses on that, and there's there are 4 topics in this article that I found interesting, and those are the ones that I think, we're going to read them, and then we're going to kind of give our 2 cents on what we think about that, and then once again, like I've said on previous podcasts. You guys are watching this. If you have an input, if you have an idea, or if you have just an opinion on what we're talking about, leave us a comment and questions if you have any, and this way we'll bring them up on the future ones. So the number one thing that she wrote in this article in regards to create space in our days to be creative, right? And with that comes the organization of our hours. So that's
Time
kind of like
management,
the
yeah.
time management of our day is probably the most important part of the whole creative process, because if we're just jumping from one thing to another constantly, we're not going to be focused and we're going to kind of lose track. What have you done when you're working in front of the computer or at home or in school? What are the tricks that you have to kind of push that idea forward the best way?
Well, I do a few things. As a teacher, I always say that I became a teacher because I loved school. I'm a perpetual student. I'm always learning.
That's always a good reason.
So I do find time. I force myself to find time to read. So I love reading. And I read different material. So
Yeah.
I came across this article because I was thinking about how to be creative, how to help my side of the Creative 7 part.
Because for context, for people that are listening, you do all the creative writing for Creative
the content,
7. So
exactly.
your
So-
creativity comes into the writing part.
aspect. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's not just reading books, which I love, but it's also researching. It's also spending time really finding out how people get about doing things, right? So for me, that's one of the ways I try to time manage to block some time when doing that. And a lot of times what I do is, if I'm walking, which I love doing, I love taking time to walk. Most of the times I'm walking Loki, our dog, right? But I am listening to other podcasts that interest me,
So
or
you try
audiobooks.
you try
Yeah.
to combine things so that you get most out of those times, right?
Yeah. So
Makes sense.
in that sense, that's basically.
But it's funny you're saying that, because I also find myself doing that a lot. Nowadays, whenever I go driving, 9 out of 10 times I'm not listening to the radio. I'm actually listening to a podcast. And I will start with the books as well. I think that's going to be, because my biggest thing is, like, I like reading, but I never have time to read. When we go on holidays, that's when I like go through a book or two. But, unfortunately, we don't go on holidays.
not that often.
But so I'm going to try, because you're someone that listens to a lot of books, audio books, and you have good things to say about that, and I get that, because when I listen to podcasts, I'm always listening to things that can inform me and get me up to par with what's going on. So time managing in that sense, and doing more than one thing at the same time whenever is possible, I think that's the best way. But I do have to say, this is probably my weakest part of the whole creative equation and how to get there, because scheduling stuff for me is, I try my best. I have my calendar with everything, but I'm also distracted very easily. And when I say distracted, it's not like I'm.
And that's a creative mind.
I guess.
It
guess
is.
I'm not like looking to the ceiling or to the, I get distracted in the sense that notifications come in, or I was going to search for something,
And you're curious
and
about
then
the
my
world around you.
curiosity just pulls me into these, oh, look at this article, and look what's going on here, and oh, new tech there, and like I just get pulled into these things, and then all of a sudden, I'm just gonna take a peek at this.
Yeah.
That 1 minute thing is going to turn into 10 minutes, and then there goes my schedule. And I've been trying my best, and you've been helping me out with that. Thank you. You've been helping me with that. And it's hard. Not everybody works the same way. I know, I think one of the hardest things is really to be able to disconnect from everything else and concentrate on what you're doing.
And that's that I feel that people today have a really, really hard time doing that.
Yeah.
Because
Just so much stuff just coming at
just
us,
like you
right?
said, like you're getting bombarded with emails, you're getting bombarded with notifications from different things, phone calls, and then all of these things that
Yeah.
are happening. That's why, like for me, I refuse to check any of the social media platforms on an hourly basis or whenever it comes to mind. Yeah, I think about it, but I will do it during breakfast, and then during lunch, and then somewhere in the mid-afternoon. And again, because unless I'm working on something
Yeah,
and
if
researching,
you're
that's a
working on
different
it
that's a
and-
different thing, right?
And we help a lot of our clients with their social media
So that's
platforms and all of
different.
that. So we do have to pay attention to
So
that.
I
but
am on social media, but I am not. That's
Yeah,
what I'm trying to
you're-
say.
it's work.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
work. It's not
So
distraction. Yeah.
I'm writing a blog, or I'm whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So, but just curiosity of saying, okay, let's see what's going on. That's when I time it.
Yeah.
I feel that with creativity as well, sometimes challenging yourself with the unknown brings that part of creativity, because when you settle in the when you settle in a comfort zone, you're fine. Like, you are creative in that comfort zone, but you can exhaust that creativity if you don't challenge yourself. And I found this article interesting. The challenges, they don't need to be negative.
No,
They can be very positive,
And
right?
the next point that she wrote is also a challenge, and it is definitely. It seems like she's writing all the bad things about me. But another one that I struggle with is they always say is she's saying that we should dedicate more time to the things that really matter and delegate the other
Yes.
stuff to other people, or if we can, obviously. If you have an employee, then you can get them to do the things that you could do but you don't really need to do. You can delegate somebody else to do it. And I think that that's another thing that I don't know if it's just because I have a creative mind and that I'm always trying
And you're
to
a business
achieve.
person. You're an entrepreneur.
No, but I think this has to do more with my design side of things, and I'm always seeking perfection on things need to line
You
up,
are a
and
perfectionist.
and I think I kind of do that with everything in my life. I try to get everything to that perfect state, and now that I'm getting older and wiser.
Okay.
I'm starting to learn to put that aside a bit, because it's true. Trying to do everything won't work.
No.
No.
And it's not healthy. You run out of time. I think that's the main issue, is that you really run out of time. And when you delegate, a lot of times you can be surprised, but in a very good way. Because sometimes people may surprise you in that sense, right?
Yeah, they might come out with different ideas
A
from a
concept
different,
that is just like, wow.
different perspective.
So yeah, I feel like delegating doesn't mean you're giving up or abandoning it. You're just not dedicating so
I
much
think
time
my
to
fear
that.
is that
right?
I have an expectation even on my own work, and I feel like I want to give always that 100%,
Yeah.
and I do give my 100% every single
You
time.
actually give it more than that.
But I'm afraid that the other person I might be delegating isn't going to be able to do that. What I'm realizing now is that if you want to do a lot of things, it's hard if you don't delegate, because then there's one little aspect to the whole ratio here, which is time. Time is limited. And if I try to do everything, then you won't have enough time for everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm realizing more and more. And I'm just kind of trying to delegate as much as I can. And I just noticed my laptop is running out of battery. But of course, this is what happens.
We're creative.
But we're going to keep on going until it dies off. The third point, what I find interesting as well, has to do with scheduling. But it's scheduling time for you to think, to just
And that almost sounds absurd, right?
to let your mind just wander
Be.
around.
Yeah, just be.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds absurd that you have to schedule, like, okay, But
right?
you do. You really do. And
Hey, listen, I'm the one that scheduled lunch because I would forget to have
you
lunch.
forget lunch.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you have told me before that when I'm working, I have a teacher mentality where I get tasks done, right? I'm
100%.
on point. And it made me think when I read that and I said, okay.
Yeah, because we work very different in that. You have your notes, and
Yeah.
and you put your notes and you
it's
just follow them.
Old school checklists, but they
boom.
work so well with me.
For you,
Like it's just dun 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 dun. But you're right. Like I go, okay, check, and they don't necessarily need to be in that order. It's just how I remember them.
But at
right?
the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, but because in school you're so used to not being interrupted by outside forces, even though like in the classroom you're going to be
Constantly.
interrupted by the students, but that's a part of the class
Yeah.
environment. What I'm saying is that you're not being bombarded by other
No,
issues,
it's
right?
it's the within
you're-
the classroom.
Yeah, you're focused
Yeah.
just on what you're
Yeah.
doing, and when you're in the office, you kind of do
There's
the same
different
thing.
things, yeah.
But you have your list and you just stick to that, and you don't get distracted with other stuff. And with me, and I think it's because being in business for so long, and having to do a lot of the stuff. When we started, it was basically just me plus one, and then the company started growing and more people. But with that, it's like more distractions, and first it was me trying to do everything, so I was distracted in that sense, and then it's trying to work with everybody else. That's another type of distraction. I mean, it's not easy. It depends. I think we as human beings, we really need to kind of find out these little hacks, right? How to do things. And going back to your list, you know what, honestly, I'm very techie, and I love having my calendars and my to-dos
and I
all
do
of that.
too, but
But I'm finding that I'm going back to using your system. And I'm not calling it your system because it's not really yours.
not
It's the
my
system
system.
that you use, which is pen to paper.
Yeah.
And just scratching it off when you're done. Because there's something to when we have an idea and we can just write
just
it down.
scribble it down, yeah.
As opposed to grabbing some
Yeah.
sort of tech and having to write it down. I don't know. Personally, even though I'm very techie, I'm finding that the pen and paper are
because you can then take it from the pen and paper to
yeah.
and then you become creative.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
And great point. I mean, that's exactly the other side of it, because I find that during the day, I just make all these notes and I make these points. And then at the end of the day, I'll put that onto the reminders or to-do list that I have on the computer. But then it'll be different. Then it becomes a task, and then that can go into to the calendar. And then when it's in the calendar,
and
it becomes
you've
something
had time
else,
to
right?
almost reflect on it, or at least it's not something new. Because for me, where that comes from is really, by the time I got to put it on my calendar or whatever, I'd forgot what I thought about, right? And because just you're getting bombarded with so many different things, and it's one of those aha moments that you have that I just really scribble it down. And sometimes I need to stop and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking or saying? Oh, okay, it was this, right? Because you just scribble down something.
Yeah.
But
But it's what works, right?
it's what allows. And it's really challenging yourself, but now it's in a good way, with, different aspects of the things that you can do. For me, working is almost a therapy. Right.
Yep.
It allows me to
Said every workaholic always.
yeah, no, but in my case, it does allow me, believe it or not, to focus.
No, absolutely.
And to really
Listen, I'm joking
dig-
with you,
yeah,
but
I know,
I'm the
but
same way.
you are.
know this,
I know
right?
that, right?
I'm
So-
always working. We're on holidays, and
It is
my mind is
unbelievable,
always
right?
working.
But
right?
I can't stop because it almost depresses me when I stop. I can't sit in front of a TV and just look at unless it's really, really interesting and I cannot miss a second of what I'm watching, right?
Yeah.
But very few movies, very few series, documentaries do that to me. I need to be researching what I'm looking at or the actor, whatever
Makes
the
total
case
sense.
may be, right?
I'm like that too, so that's why.
But again, we don't give ourselves time to think. We don't give ourselves time to stop and say, okay, let me reflect on. That's why I'm thinking of doing meditation.
We need to do meditation. We got hey, Good topic for another podcast. We need to get somebody that is all into meditation, and
That would be
and-
great.
You know what? There you go. New topic. We just figured this out right now. This
There
is
you
what
go.
we do. Before my computer dies, I just want to get the fourth and last point about this whole creativity and what you should be doing or not. And this one is very interesting. This one I like. She said, "Give yourself permission to do it wrong." Meaning,
Really?
be creative. You can go crazy, right? It actually says right after, there is very little perfection in the creative process.
And my
And this
really
is so,
was to
so
you.
true. Sorry?
My really was to you because I read that before.
No, but this is where, a lot of times I find myself, if a client needs a logo or a label or a flyer, whatever it is, they'll give us obviously what they need and a certain direction, hopefully, and and one of the things that I always tell my designers is that don't be concerned about being perfect in the first draft. That's why it's called a draft.
Exactly.
Right? A lot of the designers I've had throughout the years, they had that issue, which was they were trying to do it perfectly the first time. That's not what a draft means. That's the final design. Draft the ideas, throw them in there.
And you do that in everything. Writing. That's why we tell students, edit your work.
Exactly.
Because really, I get you, because I get all this.
And it's not really getting it wrong.
No.
I think it's it's a stepping stone to
Yeah.
the final product, right?
I've done this exercise, which is interesting with my students, where I'm very techie with my classes, and they were
I've
trying
taught you
to
everything I could.
They've tried to write things for me perfect, without mistakes. And then one day I was teaching them how to do summaries and things like that, and so I just grabbed what I was teaching and I started typing, but I was projecting it for them to see, and at the end. Because I type very fast, and I just let my ideas flow because I didn't want to forget what I was thinking.
Yeah, you're just putting them down.
And then at the end, some of them said, "Oh, there's a run-on sentence. She's missing an accent because we were doing it in French. She's missing an accent."
That's when you edit.
And then I said, "Exactly. You see? So now we're going to go back and fix, and we're going to take away what's extra, add what we're missing,
That's it.
find out the words." So it works with everything, really. That's why you edit.
And that's how you get good at being creative, is because you just never know when the idea. So you're writing, you're throwing these sentences
I was
up.
just going, right?
All of a sudden, you're throwing what seems like a crazy idea, but that can spin you into. See what I did there? It can spin you into a good idea. You know what I mean? Something that you weren't even thinking about when you started the project, right?
Yeah,
Or when you
exactly.
started reading it. I tell my designers that all the time. Like, you know what the poster needs to have there. Throw it on there.
And
Like,
don't be afraid of throwing in
worry
the
about-
garbage some of the work you've done. Like, it's fine,
But
really.
and also don't spend too much time on it. Like, just start throwing things. And from my experience as a designer, I think once you start doing that, it's like throwing paint onto the wall and then trying to figure out what you
Happy accidents.
It's the happy accidents. And then that's how creativity really starts. So this is one of the points that I really, really think that is 100% true. Start. Don't worry about making a mistake. Just go for it and
agree.
get going.
That's what makes you creative.
I think so. That's the way I am. Oh, wow. I have 1% on my laptop. These, that's why I love these laptops.
thing.
They last forever. But so yeah, I mean, aside from that, I think this was an interesting.
I'll research it some.
Yeah, we'll have to research a little bit more. But in the comments, tell me what you guys are doing to stay creative. Like a lot of people I know, they like going for a walk. They like going for a run. They want to go to the gym and just work out, and that's how their ideas start flowing. For me, I'll be honest, when I go for a walk, I also, it really inspires me because I'm always looking at everything, paying attention to all the details of signs and posters and anything that I see out there that has a little bit of a design flair to it. Like I'm always paying attention to every little thing and trying to follow trends
Yeah.
as well. I think being a creative person, you need to do that. If you just keep yourself into a little bubble of your world, I mean, you're not going to evolve. You need to look at other people and see what they're doing, and get inspired. It's not about copying what they've done. It's
No.
about getting inspired by that. That's why, even from my stuff, I have no issues like telling people this is how I do my thing, my design, because
You are you.
I'm myself, and I can give a different view on that. Somebody can follow exactly the same steps that I'm giving them, but it'll never come out the same way because, again, they're a different person. They're gonna have a different outcome. So that being said, this episode is basically done. So we're gonna wrap it up. And anything else you want to add? Am I
No,
forgetting anything? Because
No, I think
we really just set
inspiration.
this up and just started going because
Yeah.
today was one of those days that my schedule was.
I guess I'll leave it with, is there lack of creativity in today's workplace? Like, do you feel? Let us
that's a
know.
good point.
Do you feel that our speedy society, like everything
good
has
point.
to go? Are we expected to be creative, or are we expected to just do work?
Or that's a good point.
can
I
we-
mean, if we're expected now to
Yeah.
be creative, but at a
Can
10
we
times
take time to think?
faster.
Can we take time to make
Yeah.
mistakes and not draft stuff? Is this an issue in today's world? Like, are we being
That's a good
pressured to not, without noticing, and maybe people who are putting the pressure on us don't even realize it, but not to be creative?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. We still have a couple of minutes, and I know I said we were going to stop, but this is the thing. Never shut the program off, because you just never know what's going to happen. But that's a really good point, what you're saying, because a lot of times, and now I'm speaking from my own experiences throughout these 14, almost 15 years, God, time flies, of owning Creative 7 and being creative. A lot of times, clients put so many damn deadlines that are so
Everything
short.
is for yesterday.
Yeah, and it's like, but they still want to
Yeah.
have the perfect job. They
Yeah.
still want it to look the best. It takes time.
It does. It
You
really
know,
does.
and I think everybody should learn a little bit to respect that, because it would just make things look a lot better. Because when you're rushing, there's no way. I mean, you might get one or two projects that you can, because you have experience, you might be able to go a little bit quicker and get things done right
but
away.
could you improve it?
But exactly
Yeah.
that's exactly where I was going. Can you improve it? I think you can, right? If you can sit on a project, even if you do the first or second draft of it, sit on it for a day or 2, come back to it. I'm sure you're going to look at it with fresh
We
set of
always
eyes,
do. Yeah.
and you're going to go, I might change this. This might be something that I can change. I do that all the time. Like, I look at projects that I've done 2, 3, 10 years ago. I'm like, wow, I did that. I would have done this, and this now, because now I have a different experience, different view. I'm not in that time frame. So
This
yeah.
is like a culinary experience. It takes time to make a delicious dish.
Okay, and I think that's going to be it, because we're talking about food. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
So we're going to get dinner going. We're
Yes.
going to stop this episode of Creative Spin Podcast. I need to get a good jingle going on. I think that's going to be our mission this week, is to get a good jingle.
Be creative.
And
That was a
I
good. That was a
want-
good draft.
I think I should sing it
Again,
or not.
let's edit.
Yeah, probably. We're going to, yeah. I don't know.
Again, a good draft. Yeah.
Good. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to another Creative 7. Creative 7. See, I'm so used to saying it.
Well,
Creative
it is your sponsor.
Yeah, it is. Creative Spin Podcast. And don't forget, we're always coming out every week. There's a new podcast. Give us ideas. Give us comments. Do all the stuff. Likes, shares, retweets, subscribes. What else can you do? Whatever you
Comment,
can do.
whatever.
Yeah, I've already said that.
Oh,
Anyways,
okay.
guys, thank you so much. And thank you for putting up with me for another episode.